Howdy, this is the Views from the Schott podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Thursday, August 7th, 2025, and I wish you a very, very, very happy National Sea Serpent Day. Today's show continues the 2025 Summer Guest Series. This time we're joined by new Ohio State assistant coach Brian Walsh. Excited for a conversation about his background and now being in Columbus. Before we get there, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button. You know how it goes at this point. Really appreciate when people do that. Leave a comment as well if you'd like. And if you're listening on podcasts as well, if you haven't given a 5-star review, please do that. Shout out to Nut House. And make sure you subscribe. This is the only Ohio State basketball exclusive podcast publishing at least one episode a week year-round, so encourage you to stick around for many more conversations with Coach Justice, Coach Diebler, more players, more coaches coming up in the next month before we really get ready for the season. All right, Coach Walsh, you're here with us today. You're in Columbus, so coming from Indiana, we've got a lot to get into, but my first question, of course, is obvious. Ohio State, when the portal opens, says, Gabe Cupps, come on over to Columbus. Gabe says, okay, I'll do that. And then about a month later, you joined from Indiana as well. So when you left, did you leave a gift basket and say, hey guys, like, sorry, like we're now Indiana, you're kind of like Ohio State's B team. We're just taking everyone at this point. How did that go?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting time, obviously, towards the end of the season. Coach Woodson was not going to be coming back to Indiana. Didn't know what the future was going to hold for myself, my family. However, with Gabe being one of the guys I was able to bring to Indiana, at the end of the day, it's all about the players, right? And you want to try to put them in the best position possible for them to experience success. And the relationship I had with Gabe was able to kind of help him navigate the transfer portal process, which can be a lot, especially in today's landscape. But, I think he landed obviously an awesome place. And I think, the reason that I believe that, not just because I'm here, because that happened, like you said, a month before this job even became available, but it's because of Coach Diebler, and he had recruited him out of high school. And, Gabe is a type of player that needs to be appreciated for kind of who he is and what he does and how he conducts his, his business. And I think Coach Diebler, truly understands Gabe and all the things that he can bring to a program, from being a coach's son, just like Coach Diebler, to, being a point guard and just being a very heady player, a competitor, high character individual. So, I felt, at that time, not knowing what I was going to do, having some conversations with Coach Diebler, like, hey, this guy is going to be able to help move the needle for you as you continue to build out your culture and your program. And a little bit after that, got the call to come down here and interview, and I just couldn't be happier, man, from a professional standpoint and personally. This place has been unbelievable. I've had an awesome summer. Still learning my way around here, around the city, but it's been a big time situation.
Yeah, so coaching is obviously a really small world. A lot of times it's a connection, or it's a connection of a connection when you move jobs and go somewhere else. So take me through, how did you end up getting connected with Coach Diebler, and how did you know now was the right time to move on from Indiana to Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, when you're out on the road recruiting, you kind of, make friends that way. So in the past 3 to 4 years, I'd always see Jake out working extremely hard on the recruiting trail. I'd be trying to do the same thing. And we ended up, bumping into each other and kind of having some conversations, and, just got to know him a little bit better, and think he's a terrific person and man first. And obviously he got the situation here at Ohio State, which he rightfully deserved after what he was able to do as an interim. And just extremely happy for him as he was building out his staff. Obviously, the first year, he put together an awesome staff. And then when things opened up a little bit in year 2, at the moment, I was in a little bit of a transition period, not knowing, kind of my next move. And, just knowing of each other, being friendly, I think there was a level of mutual respect, of obviously what he's done here at Ohio State and what I've done at Indiana in years prior. So that kind of all came to fruition around the Final Four, and just a perfect timing, really, for me personally. for my next step in this coaching journey, and was able to bring my family closer to home. My wife is from Akron. I'm from Pittsburgh. So this is actually the closest I've been to home in 11 years. But, um, when you're able to go to a place like the Ohio State University and the brand again, I've been very fortunate to work for some high powered brand schools, and this is, no different. So just extremely grateful and fortunate that this opportunity came about. And like I said, just thrilled to be here.
So you mentioned a little bit about your background. I don't know if you know this. I'm hoping I'm going to give you some new information today. But from your time from Xavier to Akron to UD to IU to Ohio State, I think those are all the programs you've been at. As a player and coach, you have averaged 22 wins per season. You've made 9 NCAA tournaments and 6 conference championships. That's quite the impressive resume and a pedigree of winning. So, is there anything you pull from previous roles and just seeing excellence, especially at UD? You were there at a very strong time with the Flyers. Is there anything you pull from past experience that you say, man, this is paramount to building a winning program, which obviously Ohio State fans are very anxious to get back to?
Yeah, no question. I think, each step along the way, you learn, right, from your past experiences, whether that's, being a player and being in the shoes of the guys that now you're coaching. So, I feel like that gives me a great understanding of, kind of their thought process, how they're feeling on day to day, having an understanding of back to back practices in a game and travel, and, just understanding a little bit of like how they're feeling, to, growing up in the business, from going from GA to assistant ops to operations to recruiting coordinator to assistant coach. I'm proud of my journey. Did I wish it happened faster for me? Of course, but I didn't skip any steps and was able to learn a lot of things along the way, and had a lot of great coaches to learn from. And Sean Miller, who I started out for at Xavier, to then transferring and being under Keith Dambrod, who had an unbelievable run at the University of Akron, making 10 straight MAC conference championship games in a row. So that was a very, very rich tradition that I was walking into. I came from Xavier, coming off 2 Sweet 16 appearances. And then as soon as my playing days were over, got right in to coaching, and was able to stay on 1 year at Akron with Coach Dambrod, who I learned a ton. I learned the value of a work ethic. That guy was an absolute grinder, in before the sun and out in the evening. So he really, kind of set the foundation of like how you work in this business. And then was able to go over to the University of Dayton under Archie Miller. Like you said, I think we set a program record in the 3 years that I was fortunate to be a part of, with a couple conference tournaments, NCAA appearances, winning in the NCAA tournament. And along those ways, you understand how programs run. You understand, the recruiting aspect, what, seems to work, from a characteristic to a talent to intangibles. And then as I moved to Indiana, and you go up another level, all those things are even more magnified, right? Because it's a bigger stage, and the games mean more, and there's more money involved in the fan bases and all those types of things. So, like I said, been very, very fortunate to kind of go on the journey that I've had. I've experienced a lot of winning. I think that's been an attractive piece to kind of get me to my next step along the way. But yeah, I think there's so many things that you can take from and learn from, even like the guys above you when I was in ops, the assistants, or when I was a GA, the ops. Like there's so many things that happen within a basketball program that I don't think the average fan truly understands or realizes what goes on in a day-to-day process. And all those people have extremely important roles, and everyone working together really helps the winning, which is honestly one of the biggest reasons and draws of me wanting to get to Ohio State. Because Coach Diebler, all he talked about when we were going through kind of the interview process was staff chemistry and the guys that he has on the staff, and the experience and the winning, and they're a tight knit group. And I've been here. My first day was May 5th. It's about been 3 months, and I certainly feel that chemistry of the group of people in the office. And I think, that translates down to the guys, because you can't really trick the players. They know they know everything, they see everything, they hear everything. And if you're not super together and tight up top in the office, then I think that can trickle down to the players. But here, it's been an unbelievable experience. The other coaches that I'm working with are not only great coaches, they're great guys, they're great fathers, and that's the type of environment that I wanted to put myself in. So, it's been great.
Yeah, so take me through, like, you get an offer from Jake Diebler to come join Ohio State, and you still have a decision to make for yourself and for your family of, is this the right fit for me? So as you go through that interview process, how did you kind of have that security and really know in your heart that Ohio State, this is where I want to be for my next step in my career?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it starts with the head coach, right? You got to have the utmost belief in him, um, because at the end of the day, you're attaching, your life, your family, your wagon to him. And, just having the conversations that we had and his vision of the program and how he does things and how, his vision kind of aligned with, what I'm about as a coach and a person and, as a family man. I think that was really, really important. But, he's extremely driven, motivated. He's a younger guy. So, like, his drive is something I can really relate to. We're both motivated individuals to try to win at the highest level and recruit at the highest level caliber and do things the right way, especially now in today's landscape of so many different moving parts. So I think it always starts with the head coach. And again, just my belief in him is ultimately the deciding factor. But then you peel back the layers and then, you want to go to another school that has resources, right? Ohio State has big time resources and facilities and things that are going to draw the top recruits to the school. And then I think you got to look at the staff and who he's surrounded with and their past experiences and what they're about. Um, there's a lot of things that you kind of take into consideration when you take, a job of this magnitude. And then, obviously at the forefront of that is my wife, her happiness, my two children. What does that look like for them in their daily lives? And um, as I went through it and had some conversations with my wife and what we wanted to do next, I mean, this was a no brainer. As we went down the list, it checked every box of what I was looking for from a professional standpoint. It also checked a lot of boxes from a personal standpoint. And, just very, very fortunate that this opportunity came about and I wanted it really, really bad. And, here I am. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work as hard as possible and helping this thing, get to where it deserves and help Coach Diebler and the staff get this program back to the top of the Big Ten, competing for Big Ten championships, making deep runs in the NCAA tournament, Final Fours. That's what this program was, and that's our vision to try to get that thing back to.
So, as you look back at your career to this point, whether it be in the playing realm or in coaching, are there any moments or any circumstances that you say, man, I am really proud of this? Like, what would you say to this point you're most proud of in across your career?
It's a good question. I'm a faith-based guy, so I think a lot of it is, you try to control what you can control and show up with a great attitude and work extremely hard and treat others really well. And things tend to go well for you, and that's kind of been, how my career has gone. But some of the things I'm most proud of is continuing to be a great father to my children, try to be the best husband I can to my wife, because that's ultimately the most important thing in my life. But to the job, it's about how can you lead these young men and help them build habits that will take them past basketball. Been fortunate to work at some programs where in Indiana and Ohio State, like, life after basketball could be really good if you handle your business correctly. So, I'm most proud of building the relationships with the players and them having trust in me, once while they're here, but at the same time, while they go on to be future husbands and fathers and businessmen, like that means a great deal to me. And then, obviously putting a really good product on the floor and winning, right? That's ultimately what we're paid to do is to put a really good product on the floor and to win. I don't know if there's any like one thing that I could say, there's in the coaching profession, it's very kind of, up and down. You lose a job, you get a job, but I've always just tried to just keep the main thing, and keep my head down, and work extremely hard, and um, treat those around me well, and build relationships. And that's, I just try to be consistent. I think that may be the thing I'm most proud of, is just continuing to try to be the same person every day, and someone that can be counted on, from the head coach to the trainer to the player. They know what they're going to get every day.
Yeah, so it feels like several coaches, either on the show or just in side conversations, have kind of got that same theme of, I want to be a great man, I want to be a great husband, I want to be a great father, and all that stuff. And obviously that desire kind of flows down to the program of really caring about the players that you're leading. So I would also assume that's got to be a pretty weighty responsibility for you, and it sounds like something you take pretty seriously as well. So, I mean, I I feel like it's something that you just kind of learn with experience and the relationships you have with guys. But are there any stories you would think of, or just tenants in general you think of I really want to, if there's a player that I'm close to, I really want to do A, B, C for them, or help them be prepared for X, Y, Z. Anything like that come to mind?
Again, you got to go back to, when I was a player, just the people that impacted my life, and, Coach Dan Brock comes to my mind right away. So I was coming off a Xavier situation where I didn't have the best experience, didn't have a ton of success, and he kind of revived my career. And just remember the little things that he did for me that, helped me build confidence in myself. Whether it was a phone call in the evening, just checking on me to make sure I'm okay, to, you know, getting on me, holding me accountable if, I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing in the classroom. I think there's so many different examples. I mean, we're around these kids more than we're around our own family. So they become our family, right? So you become kind of a, if you will, a mentor, a role model, a father figure to them. And for me, like you said, that is very, very important. You want to be a great example to them, and make sure you're saying the right things. But more importantly, like, your actions follow up what you're saying. And, those things right there, I think if you do it at a really high level, those correlate to the court. Those correlate to, bringing tight huddles in whenever, another team goes on a run, or keeping the guys poised. Like, all those little things, like, everything matters, man. Everything matters, from the smallest detail to the biggest thing. All that stuff really, really matters.
So as you look at your, I guess, entering Ohio State, whether it be today or 3 months from now, as you're accepting the job, Um, is there anything you have been most excited about, whether it be the recruiting chops or, X's and O's, player development, any skills that you really are looking forward to applying here at Ohio State?
Yeah, I don't want to pigeonhole myself. I think all of the above, right? The job of the assistant is obviously to make Coach Diebler look amazing, right? And how you do that is on court development, get your players better every day. Recruiting, bring the best players in the country to the table, and, hopefully that they get to Ohio State, and then which ultimately hopefully will win games. But I got to give a ton of kudos and credit to the staff, because when I got here in May, like, a lot of the heavy lifting was already done. You know, they did a phenomenal job. Number one, in retention, bringing back, 7 guys, I believe, from the previous team. The 3 leading scorers, like, that's a little bit unheard of in today's landscape. So, like, that to me speaks to the head coach and the coaches and the culture that they created. And those guys want to come back, right? Maybe they could have tested the market and gone somewhere else and got more money, but, it says something about guys that want to come back and, play for the emblem on the front versus the name on the back. Um, so got to give a ton of credit for them. They did a phenomenal job in the portal putting together the roster. And, when I got here, we were kind of putting the finishing touches on the roster. But, as we look ahead, and we had an awesome summer with the players, we got better, we got stronger. That was super encouraging. But, I want to continue to improve every day, whether that's X's and O's, that's recruiting, that's relationships, player development. I mean, you name it. Um, you know, I love what I do, right? I come to work. I don't think it's a job. And, being able to pour into my passion is awesome. And I'm very fortunate. But, as we kind of move along the summer and now we start building out the next class, which again, I can't speak of the names yet, but, having two in the fold already. So that's fantastic. And then hopefully putting together a big time slate of visitors in the fall to see if we can get one or two of those guys to come here is now kind of where the focus goes.
Yeah, and I guess to backtrack a little bit, like it seems like you are very much relationship oriented with your players, with the staff, with those who you work with. And you mentioned like Ohio State keeps 7 players from last season, and that's a good thing. That's a lot in today's day and age of college basketball. So how tough is it, the fact that you have to handle your business as a coach and shake hands and part ways with players who it's better for them to go to take an opportunity at a smaller program or at a bigger program, whatever the case may be. Like, you've got to deal with, I build these relationships not knowing, and maybe more likely than not, I'm with them for a year and then they're gone. So how do you deal with that, like, just as a human being?
Yeah, I mean it's challenging, right? Especially right now with these kids. They got so much going on. They got their families, of course. Some of them have agents, some of them have trainers. Like, there's more people around these kids than ever before, and they're having to deal with social media. And now they're dealing with money, and now they're dealing with X, Y, and Z. And I think that's where, like, you got to get it right, or as right as possible in the recruiting process, and doing your due diligence and getting as much information as you possibly can about who are we bringing into the fold. I know Coach Diebler is very, very, very um, that's very important to him, of what type of person are we getting, what type of player are we getting, so, because they're going to be going through adversity. And we want guys that are going to be able to grind through that, stick together. And those, again, that character, those intangibles, I think you can recruit those, right? That's our job as coaches, to obviously get the talent, right? But whenever you're able to combine that with the intangibles and the character, like, that's where you can have some elite success and sustainability. And I think, obviously this past year for Ohio State, like, they were, you could argue, a game or two away from making the NCAA tournament, which, that's, ultimately they wanted to do better, right? But it was a great foundational year one. And now it's our job is to take that thing to the next level and make the NCAA tournament and see if we can get to the second weekend and continue to build. But going back to the relationship piece, I mean, you know, you're basically going year to year. It is what it is, and if you don't accept that, then you're fooling yourself. You try to do the best you possibly can in those 9 months of having them, and that's getting them bigger in the weight room. That's getting them better on the floor. That's making sure they understand, like, they're valued and a part of the program. And I do think, like, relationships can still trump some of the other outside noise. Because at the end of the day, if a player is happy, that can entice them to come back, because the grass isn't always greener. You could go to a situation and you have no clue what you're getting yourself into. So you're navigating a lot, but hey, that's the job. And if you don't want to be doing that, then it's time for you to maybe look at doing something else. But I think our staff is extremely experienced. Guys have been at some big time programs, have won national championships, been to Final Fours. I feel like we've kind of seen it all, and I feel like this group up here is very tight, very together, and I've thoroughly enjoyed working with this group of coaches. Um, so year to year, that's kind of how it goes. You obviously want to try to keep the best, and if there's some other things that feel like the guys maybe best suited going somewhere else, then hey, look, you know what? Keep that relationship and wish them the best and help them get to their next stage, and kind of keep it moving.
So I assume I know the answer to this next question. You mentioned there in that answer that Ohio State's 1 to 2 games away from making the NCAA tournament. Turns out Ohio State at home against Indiana, no Devin Royal, no Malik Renew. That was an area of opportunity for Ohio State. They lose and probably should have won that game, losing overtime. Then Ohio State goes and plays at Indiana last game of the year, and Indiana wins that game again. You have any regrets? You feel bad for what you did to Ohio State now that you're on this side? Like, how do you deal with that?
No one's ever framed the question like that before.
It's my job to spin it to, I guess, to make you look bad. I don't know.
To be honest with you, man, like those games were such big games that I hate that it had to come down to us or them. Obviously at Indiana, we didn't make the NCAA tournament either, so we kind of both, unfortunately, didn't get the job done. But you know, at that time, being in the shoes, I'm a competitor. So whatever, team that I'm with, I'm trying to beat you. Um, it just so happened to be the team that I'm working for now. But, I'm hoping to return that favor in a big way, whenever, that time comes and we play Indiana. But, it kind of worked out the way it worked out. You can't go back and change anything. I think they probably learned a lot of things from those situations and, deal with the roster they felt best suited. And, now we are here today and trying to move forward and continue to build this thing. So when we're in those situations again, like we're able to push through and get those wins when we need them to. But, you know, I can't speak really negatively or positive on either side at that time. If I'm on a sideline and there's an opponent, I'm trying to beat you. I don't care if that's basketball, ping pong, whatever it is. Like that's just kind of the competitor in me.
Doing a great job towing the line there. I put you between a rock and a hard place, and I
Yeah,
think
good
you
question,
answered that
man.
eloquently. Let's go through. So you've been with the team for a couple months. You've seen summer workouts. What's impressed you? What are the overall vibes of the team this year? Take me through some thoughts there.
Yeah, again, like a lot of the team was in place by the time I got here. And, first off, I mean, the group is just such a good group of guys. I think the staff, when you look at the roster and how they constructed it, man, was it well done. You have obviously your core seven that have been here. They understand what this place is. They understand who Coach Diebler is, how that first year went, so they can kind of lead the new guys. And then you bring in three, talented freshmen with Amari, with Miles, and with Matthew coming in. So there's that mix of you continue to build your foundation through the freshman high school class, and then you go out and you get four veteran older transfers and Christoph Tilley and Brandon Knoll and Gabe and Big Josh from Baylor who's coming off an injury. But like to me, when you look at seven returners, three freshmen and four transfers, like that's how you do it. That's how you construct a roster in today's day and age. But I've been just impressed with the obviously the talent of our team, but just the camaraderie, the chemistry. Like these guys all like hanging out with each other, being with each other. We've done a ton of like team building things this summer to just kind of enhance and speed up that team chemistry. And I think the guys really like being around one another, and that chemistry is real. It's not just lip service, me here saying that. You can feel that when you're in the gym. There's the energy, there's the positive vibes. And I think, again, that comes back to Coach Diebler and his daily messages and what he talks about and his standard and what we're trying to do every single day. So it's been great. It's been one of the best summers that I've had as a college basketball coach. So extremely excited to get these guys back here in the fall and get to work.
So you mentioned Coach Diebler kind of speeding up this bonding process. I know in the past there's been you play softball, you have a cookout, you go paintball. Has there been an event that you've enjoyed the most this summer?
We've done some fun stuff. We went to a crew game. We went paintballing. We've done a few things, but I would definitely say like the paintball was it was the first time I've ever gone paintballing, which was really fun. So like we went staff against players, and I'm not the best paintballer, but like that was so much fun. It was extremely hot, but like I remember like towards the back half of it, like I got shot in the head like 3-4 times. So like between the sweat and the humidity and the paint, like I couldn't even see anything. So I felt like I was kind of a little bit of a sitting duck for the players, but that was a really fun time that we could kind of just all go out there and have fun with each other and do something fun.
So who won between the staff and the players?
The staff started out really strong. We took the first two games, and then I think the stamina of us older guys, kind of in the heat, really took a toll. Not to make excuses, but the players ended up coming back and winning 3 in a row. So it was fun.
So I have a general qualm with sports in general, and that's coach speak. So even there, you say, and we're talking about paintball, and we started out strong, but this happened, that, blah blah blah. Um, how do we eliminate coach speak? Like, I don't care if you think that we shouldn't. That's fine. Like, you have to agree with me at this point. Like, what do we do to get rid of coach speak in the
Man,
world where clickbait is a thing and social media, and you want to have the graphic with the, like, I could have just clipped you and just put on, this is true, I got shot in the head 3 to 4 times. I could put that on a graphic, say you said it, and it's true. It
yep.
doesn't make any sense. But like, what's your take on this coach speak stuff, and how do we just eradicate this from the sport?
I don't think you can. I think it's just kind of part of the business. Mike Tomlin, he's one of my favorite guys. Being a Pittsburgh guy, Pittsburgh Steeler fan, he's got all the talk, right? So I love listening to him. But there's never going to be a situation where coaches aren't going to have some coaches talk and talk about a certain point in the game, or a defining moment in the game, or if this goes that way, or whatever it may be. Like, I don't think you can eliminate it, but uh, we're going to be a team that has no excuses. But at the time, like, you're playing against 19 to 21 year olds. I'm 36. We got some 40, 50 year olds. Like, Father Time's undefeated, man. So, you know,
So there's also, obviously, you played in college. Coach Justice played in college. Coach D, potentially everyone on the staff actually played in college. Like, is there frustration because you guys have the dad strength or the old man strength, however you say it, but is there ever like frustration where you're just like, man, like, I wish I could go out there and just go one-on-one with Bruce and demolish him? Like, does that ever happen, or messing around, you're like, man, I wish I was 22 again?
yeah, I think everybody wishes they were 22 again. I don't want to play anybody one on one right now. Like, I'll shoot against you, right? But I don't want to go out. I'll end up getting hurt. But yeah, I mean, all of us want to dial the clock back. I think these are the most important, transformative, best days of your life being in college. So, just thinking back on my college experience, I mean, was able to win, quite a bit, experience NCAA tournament like that. These years, man, they're just so much fun. As a college student athlete, and I can't even imagine now with all the things that these players are fortunate to have, what it's like to be a college student now. So, of course, we want to dial the clock back, but you know, there's no like, hey, let's lace this thing up one on one. Like, there goes my Achilles. I'm not. I gotta pick 2 small children up. I'm not trying to do that.
All
Don't
right, so let's
any hero ball.
we'll continue this theme now of some kind of more off the cuff questions. These can be some nice quick hitters here, and just gives us a chance to have a little bit more fun. So, kind of going off of this theme of, if you could play, if you could take you may not be all that familiar with the football program in Ohio State. Obviously, turns out it's kind of a big deal here in the state of
Yeah,
Ohio. But if you could take a player from the football team and place them on the basketball team, who would it be, if any?
you'd have to go with probably Jeremiah Smith. I mean, just his athleticism, his ability to go track a ball. Maybe that's a rebound. You could probably run some similar out of bounds plays that Scott used to get when Coach Mata was here for some lobs. But I would like to kind of see how he moves on on the basketball floor. But I mean, a world class athlete. So why wouldn't you try to bring him over here and see what he can do?
So on the flip side, which basketball player should be, if allowed, playing football for Ohio State as well?
We got a couple guys that maybe pretty good at the football. Obviously, Bruce is built like one. I think he
He
was
sure is.
a really good football player back in high
Mm-hmm.
school.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're doing some speed and agility and some ladder drills, and I'm looking at Devin Royal like, did you ever play football before? And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, I think he could be potentially a good tight end. So there's probably a couple guys that may be able to cross over. I don't know at that level, right? Because that's the highest of the high. But we got good athletes over here, so I like to think that they could cross over and be pretty good at any sport.
So when you're watching guys work out, and you're watching guys get shots up and play in open gyms and all that stuff, which player on the roster right now do you look at him, maybe you scratch your chin a little, and you say, he's got a little Brian Walsh in him?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't want to pretend like I'm some world beater over here. I was a 7 point a game role player that made open threes. So that question is going to be TBD. I like to think our players are a lot better than me. So I'm gonna kind of leave it at that.
Is there even just a play style that you would say? Maybe not your production, but maybe that's John Mobley Jr. if you can hit some open threes. I don't know, but even a play style that you would compare, or is Brian Walsh just one of one?
Definitely not one on one. Definitely not one on one. But I would maybe a crossover between Gabe and just his IQ and trying to make the right play, and Mobley with when I shot it, I thought it was going in. I think the coaches thought it was going in. So maybe a little bit of that, maybe the crossover of the two.
Do you have a game that you've played in or game that you've watched in college basketball or elsewhere that you would consider to be the GOAT? This is the greatest game I've ever played in or the greatest game I've ever watched of all time.
Personally, my best game was against Oklahoma State down in Puerto Rico at a double-double. Sharing the floor with Marcus Smart, so that was probably my best career game. So that was pretty cool. And then the best game I've been a part of, probably as a player, didn't play really at all, was Kansas State in Utah when we went into double overtime, and Jordan Crawford and Tu Holloway were kind of going back and forth on making some big-time shots. That was probably the best game that I was a part of. And then coaching, man, there's a lot of games. I don't know if one really kind of sticks out more than the other. There's probably too many to recall. But I think anytime you win a championship, I think that's a big time deal and something that you're always going to remember. Whether that's being an A10 champion at Xavier as a player, or a MAC champion as a player at Akron, or being an A10 champion as a young coach at Dayton. Those are kind of locker room moments and moments that all of it makes it worth it. All the work, all the hours, all the blood and sweat and time away from family. Those are the richest memories I think that you take away. So we're looking to obviously have some of those type of moments here, but those championship moments, man, they're pretty special.
If you could be reincarnated as an animal, any animal, which would you choose and why?
I was not expecting that question on today's show.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of animal shows. My son is 2 and loves them right now. And the cheetah leopard is kind of cool. It's the fastest animal on the planet. So I think that'd be a pretty cool one to have.
It's hard to argue against that one. Last question before my final question. Are you pro or anti-astrology? The horoscopes, all those types of things. Are you into that?
No.
Okay. Why?
Never been a thing for me.
Do you
my family never talked about it. My wife doesn't talk about it. All that stuff is kind of just words on paper. You're supposed to be this way, that way.
It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. I'm with you on that one. All right, Coach, we'll get you out of here on this. Last question for you. What's your message to Buckeye Nation for 2025 and beyond?
First and foremost, I'm excited to be here. And we're looking really forward to getting in front of you guys here this fall and winter and putting together a team that's going to play extremely hard. It's going to be together. It's going to compete on every possession. And we need you guys. We need to pack the shot and get as many people as we can in the building and do this thing together. So extremely excited to get started, and please come out and support us and do whatever you can to give our players energy and enthusiasm, especially here at home.
Coach Brian Walsh, it's been a pleasure having you here today. Thanks for joining the show, and good luck heading into 2025.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you, man.